Commission meeting. And I guess, Amy, can you read the monologue?
I will. The town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you called in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion. We ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request the participant return their microphone back to mute. I turn it back over to you.
Okay. Approval of minutes for November 16th. Anybody got any omissions or corrections?
Yep, I just had a few, which I told Amy I would send to her. On the first page, when we talk about 63 Foster Street and temporary fencing, area grazed by goats or pigs, we'll add in sheep. Sheep are referenced a little bit later on as well. I had a question on the notice of intent for 38 Harwood, which is the one that Ross brought in, which is the demolition and reconstruction. Is that a 4-bedroom house or was that 3-bedroom? I couldn't recall on that. For some reason, I thought 3, but it states 4. So maybe
I'm not positive, to tell you the truth. I had the impression they are upgrading the septic system, so it might be going from 4.
That's what I didn't know. So maybe if we can just check on that, that would be great.
Yeah.
On the notice of intent 80 Air Road, we have a nice list of 8 marching orders of things to do. We reference in the dialogue that they're supposed to check the pH of the basins, but then we don't put it in their work to do. So yeah. I think if it's appropriate to add it into that. Those are just some of the minor changes I have. If anybody has any other modifications to the minutes.
I just had a couple of very minor like capitalizations and changing like Ms. to Mr. Very minor stuff, but I already sent it to Amy.
Okay, thanks.
Great.
Yeah, I just had one small thing under the 336, 338 King Street. I guess it's onto the page 4. It says it will put bounds will be placed at wetland flag locations in front of the development. I don't think it was. I just put in like agreed upon locations because I don't think we were putting them at all the wetland flags.
Correct. Yeah.
It was a straight line shot, and we were putting them at either into the straight line.
If there's no more further discussion, can I have somebody make a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I move we accept the minutes as amended.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
All right, I'll do roll call. Colin Malberg, aye. Sarah Seward.
Sarah Seward, aye.
James Pickard.
James Pickard, aye.
Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Andrew Samarco.
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, minutes are approved. Administrative discussion, Wellington Drive deed restriction draft. Amy, you want to address that?
Yeah, I think I sent that around to you all. You had approved the previous draft. This really was just putting in lot 5. I can't remember which detailed information because they went for the first building permit.
Right.
So-
I know this is another draft. Can I just ask two questions on this, Amy? So under number 3, where it says the bylaw regulations and it goes through the no disturb area, it talks about no activities or work is permitted other than passive foot or motorized. When we talk about, I guess my question is it understood that no one's going to put a structure in there? So I know there's no activity and no work. Should we ever ask that there is no structures or no building? I guess is my question, because I feel like there's a little bit of vagueness in there. And then I was curious, lastly, if we should mention that there's no application of like herbicides or pesticides. So those are just kind of thoughts when I reread through. I know we've seen this before, but
that is also a standard condition, that there's no application of pesticides other than organic approved.
Okay. And then what are your thoughts on the structure? So no activities?
Yeah, let me take a look at the actual wording. What it could also do is, rather than getting specific, is be less specific, since it's just a deed restriction and that they have to go see the regulations. Because the regulations may also change.
Okay, so I recognize it's boilerplate. I think it works. So I would move that we accept it as drafted. Anybody want a second?
Was that Andrew?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call. Kyle Malberg, aye. Sarah Seward.
Sarah Seward, aye.
James Pickard.
James Pickard, aye.
Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Andrew Samarco.
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
It's unanimous.
Okay. So I don't have the mowing, and then the next on that was the dates. We talked a little bit about some of the dates.
Actually, if I can just back up on the meadow mowing, that's become a moot point, because they are mowing the meadows as per that those BMPs, and as a matter of fact, other towns are using it also.
Okay.
I don't know if you still wanted to comment on it or just let it go.
I think we can let it go for a month or two. Come back to it.
Okay. Meeting dates, has any feedback on those?
I think so far, so we know we've got our Decembers, and then it looks like January 11th and then January 25th.
Are there any holidays other than that maybe come in conflict? I don't know.
I checked all those through April. And in fact, I went up to April because I wasn't sure what was happening at town meeting. So I figured I wouldn't even bother scheduling out until I can figure out what date may or may not be. So that's like meeting on Monday because you run into holidays.
We have a few minutes before our first hearing at 7:45 to talk about, it was helpful, Amy, sending out the next agenda, and we see how long these meetings are getting, that the next meeting will start at 7. But Amy, do you want to just go over like the volume of new applicants and things that you have coming in, just so the commissioners know?
Yes, I wasn't sure if you all wanted to start at 7 next time or not. I got, I think, 4 filings in. I don't have it all in front of me, and I think most of them are sort of straightforward, but they're definitely going to take at least 15 minutes each. So that's an hour right there. And then there's the old business coming through. I think Gilly Corner kind of thinks they'll be back in. We'll see if they continue to kick that down. And well, Keolis, I don't think Keolis will be ready on the 14th because I still have to get out there.
So are you going to put Keolis in as the last hearing and then maybe put Healy as the one prior?
What I generally do is, once things start shaking out, is I put the new ones up first because I know they're going to show up and I have to put their times in the newspaper. Yep. And I kind of put them in filing order after that, unless there's ones that we want back to back because it might be the same consultant or something like that. So it's there's not a total rationale to it sometimes.
Okay.
And I think it is hard because I don't get the filings, obviously until, the filings are due tomorrow for the 14th. I got a bunch in just early.
Are they complicated?
Pardon?
Are the filings complicated or just relatively?
I can't remember whether two of them are a shared driveway that they want to pave. So that kind of counts as two filings. I assume you just open them at the same time. But I assume, there's gonna be at least 15 minutes of discussion in there, I'm sure. And then I think, 93 Mattawanaki is coming in with their request for the amended order conditions. But what might be helpful is, for example, tonight is if you think that we know somebody is going to be coming back in, if it's worth giving them 20 or 30 minutes. I'm always reluctant to do that because then they might not show up and you're dead in the water for 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
No, I think it's appropriate to just keep stacking them at the intervals that you're doing. So.
Yeah. But that's why I stuck in it, actually floated further back, like the discussion of goals and priorities, because that can be a stopgap.
Okay. Do we have, I know we didn't ask, do we have any other administrative discussion items that anybody has that they wanted to add in before the first hearing?
I guess I do have one thing. I'm just wondering, did anybody address that tree up on Harvard Road yet? It's still hanging up in the stump.
It is, they know about it. You say it is still there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about 10 feet up and it's hanging by splinters. Broke off.
Well, maybe not after tonight.
Yeah.
Is it roped off, James? So like with caution tape?
No. It's right next to the path. It could come down, part of it could come down on the path if it comes down.
Who's the steward, Amy or James?
Bill Brown.
Yeah, Bill Brown mostly is the primary one, but there's a couple of.
This is more than just a simple go in and cut it with a chainsaw.
No, I wasn't suggesting that. I was just thinking if someone had a chance to go put some caution tape up.
Yeah. Might be a good idea.
Or if we need to close the trail.
It's the only, well, it's the one that goes to the main trail from the parking lot. It's right halfway in on that.
Right, but if it's a hazard, it needs to be, that area needs to be closed.
Yeah, I guess somebody ought to look into it.
I'll double check what Jim and Bill think about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody got anything else they want to throw in?
We've got two more minutes before the 7:45.
The Green International should be able to finish off the survey over at Cloverdale. We're asking for a couple extra points to extend a little further down the property line. And I'm getting a proposal for some partial survey over at Mary Shepherd in advance of putting in a trail in there to make it a full loop trail. I did just today send letters out to the abutters because the trail's going to be, kind of close to some houses. And there's going to be surveyors out there, so I want them all to know what's going on.
Did the bounds all get put in that we requested many years ago, so we knew exactly where the property lines were, I wonder?
Yeah, Rick, Jim, and I went out there and spent an hour and a half or so tracking down as many of the bounds as we could to limit the survey, and we found a lot of them, but especially in the older parts, and on the, I guess, west side. We couldn't find anything. We kind of guessed where they were, but if we're putting a trail in, we need to know.
Yeah.
Yes. And someone's been mowing like crazy back there.
So when we put that trail in, I think we should look at the bigger picture out there for connectivity over to Westford.
Yeah.
And their conservation lands. Because that would create an amazing experience for people, and quite a long walk through many different types of habitat, including the Shilba Brook, upland farm. Just an array of diverse habitats, wetlands, the Shilba Brook, upland forest.
Yeah, I believe that the problem is we'd have to go across some private property at the horse farm.
Well, I think someone maybe that's something we need to work on.
Yeah,
Because I think it's important enough. I just think it's a opportunity that we should probably try and at least think about.
yeah, absolutely. It would be quite a connection.
So
One thing-
we on time to go with the 7:45?
Yep.
Okay. Discussion, Cooper Farm Lot 12, Mass D, file number 204-845, and Lot 13, Mass DEP, file number 204-846. Somebody want to speak to that?
Good evening, everyone. Jennifer Platt here on behalf of the applicant. I'm happy to talk to this. And Amy, if you could share my screen, I have a diagram of the property that might be helpful for the board.
You
As
should be able to go ahead and do that.
Let me see if I
Bottom.
can
In a green share screen.
share screen. Let me try this. And here, how about that one? All right, let's see if we make that bigger. Can you see that?
Yes.
Well,
So the issue we had here is we had two lots which were in front of you for NOIs and had been approved, lot 12 and lot 13. During the course of the development and permitting of this large parcel, at one point we did not believe that we could, to backtrack, we were approved to build on each of these lots. You can see in red, that was the proposed house lot. They were set back from the 50-foot BVW buffer, except for the deck was the only thing that was extending into the 50-foot buffer. During the course of development, the owner decided to combine these two into a single lot. And what was built, based on an approved and signed off building permit, was one house. It's the yellow outline that you see. So it's essentially where the lot 13 house would have been, but it's a little bit smaller. It's set back a little bit more. So even the deck is not in I don't believe the deck falls into the 50-foot buffer. And the impacts are we have one house instead of two, and the runoff and the impervious surface is less than 50%. I know there were some discussions. We talked about that at the last meeting, that these two lots were not going to be built on at all. And during the course of the development, at one point, we didn't think we could, based on our septic flow and the setbacks that were required from the planning board. The planning board had agreed to limit those setbacks so we could pull the house away from the wetland area more. And we combined these into one lot. So there would just be one house, and made one of the other lots in the development as a non-build lot so we could meet our overall septic capacity. I know that from our last meeting, you wanted to go out and take a look at this, a look at the site, and hopefully from your view of it, you can see that what we have here was consistent with our permits, but less, and more than 50% less than what we had actually been approved for. The house is there. That's the as-built foundation in yellow that you can see on this plan. The folks who are really getting squeezed here are the owners who are waiting to get in, and right now are staying in a B&B until they can actually take ownership of their home. So this is, we need to be in front of you. We need to get this approved, and are looking for your approval so we can move forward. I think this would be classified as a minor amendment. because as I said,
Jennifer, thank you. That plan was very helpful. I do have a question. So if you can explain, if we can go back one step, where on this plan it says on the left as I view it, where it says lot 13, and then in red you have lot 13 and lot 12. So do you have the original of an overlay of what 12 and 13 were?
I do, and it's really those red lines. I'm just moving back for you. Here's
So I'm curious, what is lot 13 now? So 12A really encompasses all of 12 and a portion of 13?
No, it's both. It's 100% of those two lots. There's no leftover
Okay,
lots.
so as you go down to the screen that you just had, it made reference for lot 13 on the left.
I think that 12, 13, 12A.
The drawing, Jennifer, was to show the house being set on lot 13. This drawing right here is combining both lots 12 and 13 for a lot number 12A.
But I think that the reference was, what's this lot 13 doing here in the margin?
Correct.
I didn't see that.
I think that's a mistake.
I think that's a mistake because
That's supposed to be
this
14.
is the old lot 13 and this is the old lot 12. I don't know if
Right,
you
so
see my
I'm trying
cursor.
to understand how the bounds have changed, because on this plan that's submitted states a 13, but yet in your red it states a 13 as well.
I would go
So
back to that old plan. Go back to the old plan and see what that, because maybe that lot was renamed.
Lot 14. I think that was, unfortunately, it was a typo by the engineer there, because we have this, you can see the old lot numbers here. That's lot 13. This is lot 12. This is lot 14 to the far left.
Right, okay. So thank you for that clarity. I have a point of order question on a couple things. That we had two separate order of conditions, one for 12 and one for 13. It's rare for us to see this, so I'm curious if anyone knows what DEP or council would say, is that you're not following one order of conditions because you're building on other land. So when I look at this, I don't look at a modification. You're looking at a new lot with a new house on it. Because I'm curious how the drainage works on the combined 12 and 13. But from a procedural standpoint, historically, when we've had someone come in and make changes, we've kind of closed it and opened under a new filing that has the new lot. So
I think here
I
we
struggle
could
with
say,
understanding how we cannot modify two order of conditions. One doesn't just magically go away and one gets enhanced. So that's why I'm trying to understand from a procedural standpoint what DEP would say about this.
I would think we could go under the order of conditions for the old lot 13, because everything is within those boundaries. We have just not built
You're
on
saying
the
that
other
you
one.
have no drainage on 12 and there's nothing so that it's very cut and dry where 13 ends and nothing goes on to 12?
There's no components on 12, nothing of the house.
No, but drainage, like there's been no modification to 12 at all?
There's irrigation under there, I think.
There is, you're right, Amy, there is.
Okay.
But there would have, well,
So another part of my struggle is carrying the record forward into this owner and then the next owner and closing out order of conditions. So you can't have two of these on. Yeah, I personally struggle understanding how we can do this without closing and starting with a new notice of intent, because it's two separate lots, because that was the original filing. But I'm curious to understand what the other commissioners think. But I've read through this and kind of looked at it, and I'm not familiar with it.
so if we had, if they were still two separate lots, And we had built on lot 13 exactly what we did build instead of what was proposed. And as you see there, it's really very, very minor change. All of that still would have been under the NOI for lot 13.
Right,
And
but
any drainage that it would have had, regardless of whether it carries over, would have been under that NOI for lot 13.
But it's a different deed and different bounds. So 12A is a consolidated of the two.
But if you were going back, I mean, if it, one thing we could do is reference that NOI in the deed.
Yeah, we can carry on that conversation, but until we had legal counsel or DEP, I don't think that we could make any modifications. There would have to be a blessing. That's not something that we, as Littleton Conservation, can authorize. I don't believe. But
No.
What are the other commissioners?
I agree, Sarah, with your logic. I would.
I mean,
definitely- go ahead. Go ahead, Anna.
I was just thinking, would we be able to do certificate of compliance for 12 and then do a modification for 13, expanding it to the 2 lots? I mean, because if there was no modification to 12, wouldn't they be compliant with the order of conditions? And then we could just
But what about the deed for 12A? So how do you carry forward your order of conditions on 13, which is really 12A?
Would you be able to do a modification to 13 to now include, or to
I don't know that it's permitted because you have different bounds. You originally did your filing of 2 separate parcels.
We could file, I mean, if it makes you comfortable or more comfortable, we can file an amendment to say that the NOI for lot 13 encompassing is now lot 12A.
What happens to 12 then?
12 is, I mean, it could be dismissed or closed out. Nothing's, because there's no separate building happening on 12.
No, but you have activity on it, so it would require if you have any drainage or I think you talked about that there's sprinklers or something on it, so it still requires the completion of everything. So that's just one thing that we would ask you to consider and find. But you know, when we were back out on site, some commissioners were there, and I think it's always good when we can have multiple eyes. I know that there were some concerns that day just with erosion control, that things had been taken up, and it has to be truly stable at that point. We talked about when you were there with Michael, signage. So some of those things have to be addressed. I didn't see a DEP sign that was still there, but I don't know if some of the other commissioners have some of their observations. Jennifer, I don't know that if you get out on sites or that, but the commissioners had an opportunity that week that we had the hearing to go out on site.
I was concerned that the house was constructed, to be honest with you, prior to getting, our official word. That was very surprising to me. That was the first thing I noticed.
What do you mean the house was built without coming back in front of you, Carl?
Yes, because it wasn't.
It did come back in front of you. We applied for a permit, and as I said in the last meeting, we believed we did everything proper. I'm dumbfounded that you see it that way.
So let's go back to square one. So as a lay person, anyone that's building and has an order of conditions, they know that before they break ground, they have to have their erosion controls installed and inspected. That never occurred.
They came out and inspected them, Sarah.
Not on that combined.
Yeah, on that construction, Amy came out and inspected the hay bales that were installed. Yes, she did.
Yeah, the first time I saw it, the foundation was in.
Yeah.
You came out there and inspected the hay bales that we put on from the lot line of 14 from the street down around the back. You did come out and do that.
Oh, way back when, yes.
Prior to the foundation being put in.
Right, when you break ground, you have to come out for each lot to make sure that that's done.
And approve the hay
So,
bale.
but also, so let's talk about what's going on the site presently. So what's been done on the site in the last 2 weeks in terms of getting things up to snuff?
On this site right here, on this lot,
Correct.
we installed the grass, grew that, sprinkler systems went in.
No, sorry, Matt, since our site inspection,
I'm sorry?
since our visit out to the site, when the commissioners went out and we talked about the signs, the erosion control, the scouring, those things, have those things been addressed?
The signs are the only item that have not been put back in yet, yes.
Okay, so the erosion controls were all refreshed?
No, they were not yet, no.
Okay.
We were directed by Amy.
Sign on the lot?
Wait a minute, Sarah. We were directed by Amy through email from the period of the time that we had the commissioners out there and now, asked if there were anything that we could do to.
We talked about it on site, Matt. You were there. We talked about, pardon me, that we talked about signs. Michael addressed that he had taken the signs out. We said those had to be back in. Carl talked about the erosion control, how it was inadequate, and scouring. So those were presented that day when we were on site.
And we emailed Amy for direction, and we got none, and we're told to address it during this meeting.
Yeah, no,
all right, so going forward, as a builder, you have to have erosion control. So
there was no sediment or silt that has leached through any of that. I'd asked Carl to walk out there and view it.
We did. We were all there. Carl, I don't know if you want to address it.
We didn't go on the other side of that. There are 2 filter fabrics there, Sarah, as well as hay bales.
I was very surprised at the amount of material that was going over the hay bales.
There is nothing going over the hay bales, Carl.
That's not what I saw.
Okay. I asked you to walk out there and asked you to look and see if you saw any sediment out there. There is none.
I commented. I commented right more.
Did you notice that there are 2 lines of filter fabric there?
Did you notice the scouring
on the side of the hill?
Yep, that has lack of vegetation. You have to have vegetation. Sorry, I'm just trying to find. I took some pictures.
We have loomed and seeded those areas.
I'm just trying to see if I can find my photos. I think so.
So is it the board's position to have us refile for a new NOI?
I think we're looking for clarity, Matt, from either town council or DEP, because we can't have the 2 open. When you have the lot that has been
when the entire house is on what was lot 13.
But you've changed the lot. So the lot bounds have changed. So if you can get clarity for us,
Jennifer, why don't we just sell lot 13?
It has drainage, or you have some appurtenance on it from that contributes to 13. So
I'm troubled by this because I think it should be, if the concern is notifying owners in the future that they need to comply with a notice of intent on this property, how do we make sure they're aware? It seems like we should be able to do it either with a simple amendment filing to say, these 2 are now combined into a single lot with a single house, essentially where the location of the old
you have 2 DEP filings.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're asking us to file on one of them, and the one has changed.
I don't see why there couldn't be a reference to both of them going forward.
And that that possibly could happen. But I don't think that I personally, as a commissioner, don't feel as though it's in our purview to make that decision without council or DEP's guidance on that, because we do have two separate DEP numbers right now.
Then why didn't they ask that to begin with?
So, but
I don't know.
I looked for other input. That's just my opinion. So, yeah, no, I like that one was built on, and and that it's a bigger lot. But this is just procedural.
Right. And so what I want to figure out is how we can handle this efficiently, given that we do have folks who are essentially homeless waiting for a home. And we have an administrative process that we need to get through, so you're comfortable and that we have a clear track going forward. So how do we do this quickly so we don't have either mess up in the chain of title or people waiting unduly?
Like, I don't know, you'd have to address the chairman, but I don't think it would be, it has to be in an open hearing, and it has to be in a published hearing, obviously. So I don't think that we're able to give to you this evening.
Can we get an approval subject to resolution of the, it's the administrative issue of how we file this?
Then I guess we would have to figure out where we are with certificate of compliances on both lots as well.
The certificate of compliance from the Board of Health?
From your order of conditions.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that the commission could vote on, for lot 12, former lot 12?
But
You need an application.
lot 12 doesn't exist anymore, though, Anna. So that's what I'm saying. You have you're asking to close out on a DEP number that has been modified. This is procedural. I don't know that you can do that. So.
I see.
This is rare for this to happen. Usually if something like this happens, we have time, you would close out and then combine lots and get a new DEP and a new filing number for that.
Yeah, I'm struggling here because what we've done really is just built on one of the lots, and it's only because the owner is getting the benefit of a extra lot as their side yard that they are being held up. If we had not combined them.
I think, Jennifer, if the lots had not been separated prior, we would have been able procedurally to be done with both. You could have said, I just built on this lot and left the other one done, and we could have procedurally changed that. But because the point of record has changed, the lots are different, I think that does change that. I could be wrong, so I want to make a full disclaimer that I'm probably wrong. So. But the fact that now it is one lot. So.
Amy, any chance you can get a hold of the circuit rider and would have an explanation?
I was just thinking about that. I don't know if she's even available. You mean tonight?
Yeah.
I don't have her information anymore. They've moved things around.
Is that still Kim? Still Kim, Amy?
Yeah, they still usually want a heads up.
Right, they would want time to review it, but also, I mean, it could be legal counsel. I don't know.
So it sounds like. Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. Did you
go ahead?
Oh, thanks. It sounds like we'd have to wait until the next meeting, regardless of whether or not we had the circuit rider review it, or if the lots were combined under a new notice of intent. Maybe just submitting the new NOI as like a formality and getting it approved at the next meeting would be easier than doing that. I don't know.
I think it would be good to stay on two tracks and hope that one of those can just be signed off for the next meeting. But in the meantime, we do need to address the signage, the erosion control, just things like that on the site as well.
Yeah, because even if you issue the new NOI,
Yeah,
there's
we'll
still
go
the
back to the
closing out of
erosion
the old
shed.
ones.
I'm
Excuse
sorry
me?
for interrupting.
I didn't hear either of you.
Sorry, I was just I was just saying that even if you issue an NOI for the two lots combined, you still have to close out the old ones, so it's not resolving that part.
You do them both at once.
But
Seems like we don't have any definitive answers without town council or DEP right this present minute.
I think what you do is you close out 12 and you amend 13 to encompass the new deed reference.
I mean, that would make the most sense to me, but.
Well, the question for the commission is if you go that path, is the new lot 12A, well, it's going to be the order conditions for lot 13. Is that an amended order conditions, a minor modification, or new notice of intent?
I mean, given that it's all the same conditions, I mean, I would think you would want to either do it as a minor mod because it really, that's really what it is. It's
but it's also a different plan. So
but that I think it's just,
it's a different structure. I recognize it's less, but have we even talked about the drainage on the new house and lot as well? So that's why I'm wondering if it's better just to focus on the new house and get a new order of conditions that would follow that house and that drainage. Because obviously 12 is good. It only has a little bit on it.
That seems to make sense, Sarah. It really does.
It seems, I mean, it seems like a lot of process. And I don't want to.
Well, we recognize that on times that we have tried to make decisions to accommodate, it's come back to hurt us homeowners later on some other, privates and development. So I think that we have been very cautious in the recent past, for sure.
I think we need to follow the letter of the law because you're right. We have been bitten several times on these.
I'm feeling a sort of certain amount of frustration because I think although because what's being done here has significantly less impact than what was allowed, and that's holding up the potential homeowner. And I think if we are doing a completely new NOI and we submit that to you before the next hearing, I mean, it seems like we're opening up something that's already been very heavily reviewed, as you know, as we went through all these lots in the subdivision originally. And just don't know if that's I don't know that it gets you anything.
We haven't evaluated lot 13 the way we evaluate every other lot on the subdivision. That's what Sarah's saying.
But I think you did, in that you approved a location for a home, and we have moved it slightly further away from the wetlands and made it smaller. I don't see those as having any detrimental impact on the wetlands.
Have we reviewed the drainage?
We've given the calculations from the roof runoff and everything, with both 2 houses built versus 1.
No, what I meant in terms of at the original filing is when that would have been reviewed, Jennifer. So we have only recently seen what it looks like now. Okay. Brian or Kyle, other commissioners have any questions or input?
My main thing was, and apparently you, Matt, you were told to do it from somebody else, was to remove the erosion controls. So I think regardless of what happens next, I can't speak to procedural. I don't know what that next step is, but I think the erosion controls need to get reinstalled. Any of the sediment that was built up, I didn't necessarily see anything going over the erosion controls, but there was definitely sediment built up on the erosion controls. So that would need to get cleaned up. We need to have somebody come back out there and show that everything's reinstalled. You have stabilization, and then whether it's closing out 12 and 13 and submitting a new NOI for the next meeting, that part I can't really speak to. That's outside of my understanding of all this. But I'm more worried about the condition of the site right now and making sure that, because it's been 2 weeks, so we've had some decent weather other than the heavy rain lately. Maybe you got more grass coverage. I don't know, but there was definitely some runoff that had built up along the erosion controls that were somewhat still installed.
Okay.
I agree. I think we need DEP and town council to weigh in, on the procedural questions that we have for the next meeting.
What is the time frame if they want to fill in to come up with a new notice of intent? Would that be in the time frame that we'd be able to hear it this next time around?
Yeah, I was going to mention that the filing deadline for the 14th is tomorrow, although I can push that to Wednesday, and I think the paper the main reason for that is because the paper needs time to get the public notice out if we go that direction. Requesting a CFC doesn't need to get publicly notified, so that doesn't have quite the same demand on the time frame. And if you go with a minor mod, that does not need a public notification. So it would just be a new notice of intent and/or an amended order conditions would require public notice and a butter notification.
There.
Okay. So Matt, maybe if you and Jennifer can just talk offline and ask, if you want it posted, just let Amy know tomorrow. But James, we've already gone past our 8:15.
Yeah.
And thank you. Can you remind me, when is your next hearing?
December 14th.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's where we're at.
Yep. So next, the 8 o'clock notice of intent is 38 Harwood U41-8. Amy, I'm not sure if you have an updated Mass DEP number with a 9. Raising existing dwelling and construction of new dwelling and septic system. 38 Harwood.
Hi there, this is Brandon Ducharme with David E. Ross. Yeah, we just received the file number actually late this afternoon.
You want to share it?
So basically, since our last hearing, we continued to have a chance to go out and take a look at the site. We walked it the Friday before last with a couple members and essentially kind of went over the project, which consists of what you read off, raising the existing building and reconstructing a new single-family home, which is pretty much.
Brandon, do you want to go ahead and do a screen share for the commissioners of your plan?
If Amy could put that up, that'd be great. I don't have that capability.
Oh,
If you wouldn't mind, yeah.
I'm not sure I've got it.
Okay. Well, Brandon, carry on. That's fine.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We presented the plan at the last meeting. Again, there was no real questions raised at that meeting. And again, at the site walk, I think really the only thing that we took from that was just given the condition of the existing house and yard. One of the things that was raised was we're essentially replacing the septic system in the backyard, which goes right up to the limit of the 100-foot buffer zone. And then there's what was the existing lawn that extended back to that tree line, the curved line that you kind of see there in the back. And one of the things we pointed out was that lawn, it's basically been barren for so long that there's a lot of vines and scrub growing up in there. So one of the things we mentioned would be possibly, reestablishing that to what was previously there.
Brandon, did you get to talk to anybody about the, I guess, the swimming pool or whatnot? The intent with that fence and stuff closer to the river?
Yeah, I mean, the intent, obviously, just given the age of it, is not to, continue to use it as a swimming pool. And then, it is inside the 50-foot. So, I mean, I think the inclination is basically just to leave it be.
Brandon, can you talk a little bit about what you just mentioned about bringing it back to its original state? How do you propose doing that? By
So,
mechanical?
I mean, at the least, it would need to be kind of mowed and the brush kind of, it's not even really brush. It's kind of just low vegetation needs to be taken down. And then it would just be a matter of reestablishing plant species again of a lawn. Probably could do that through maybe slice seeding, would probably be the least amount of impact to that area. And hopefully just kind of reestablish that.
And how close is that to the wetlands?
I would say, I mean, you can see, if you can see where that pool is, there's that 50-foot is the dark line just down the page a little bit. So I would say we're probably 60 feet at that point.
Yeah, there's an old chain link fence out in that property, Sarah, that kind of runs, it looked like it was pretty close to where the 50-foot buffer would be. It's all completely overgrown and whatnot beyond that.
Yeah, that fence line pretty much does run right along the that 50-foot.
And is the fence being removed?
No.
Yeah, I'm okay with reestablishing that. I would just want to make sure that the homeowners, or whether through the deed or order conditions, that it's not going to be a lawn. Like if they want to bring back some type of vegetation, pollinators or different shrubs, I think that's fine. But you would want to outline how you want to reestablish that so that they're not going to go in with chemicals.
There's some great pollinators growing right now.
Well, you guys start.
There's a lot of other junk growing, but.
Yeah, it's definitely a mix of, there are some decent plants in there, but there's also a bunch of successant, there's milkweed and different things. So in terms of establishing.
Well, monarch butterflies like the milkweed, right?
They do. In terms of reestablishing that lawn, then are we looking to limit it to kind of what that erosion barrier is, or
Kyle, or whom I would defer to you all that saw the terrain.
Yeah, that makes sense. This did have a manicured lawn at some point, or is what it looked like, back up to that tree line. It was a maintained lawn. There's an old lawnmower sitting out in the middle of the yard right now. So it would be great if we could limit it going back to a full manicured lawn like that by bringing it up to, like you said, the erosion control. I'd be much more comfortable about that, or with that.
So Brandon, if you want to submit with your final filing where that break would be.
Well, yeah, I guess in terms of moving forward, and not, I would say we'd limit it to what that erosion line is, and just make sure there's a condition that kind of spells that out. And maybe a condition in the order that states that the area between the erosion control and what was the existing lawn, will be maintained, in more of a native natural state, not lawn.
So do we want to talk about the opportunity for cutting annually? Is that like, are we looking to try and kind of bring it into a meadow or something?
I mean, there hasn't been any specific discussion about it. I mean, I think if we just let it go fallow, it's could be a bit of an eyesore for a little while. So I mean, I think if you allowed annual mowing, maybe past October, or whatever a date is, that it could be cut once a year.
Okay. I would support that and just let the homeowners know that they can come back in and have a discussion about that to see how it's going. We just don't want to do the mowing in like the spring or early summer when there potentially maybe some nesting going on. So
Yep.
September, October.
Yep, that sounds good.
Would you see any value in kind of straightening out that erosion control line and either putting some boulder or some kind of demarcation in there? Because the first owner might know they're supposed to stop mowing there. The second owner might just keep going.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Either some sort of, shrubs, bushes, plantings of some sort that kind of spell it out pretty obvious.
Yeah. I would agree with both those thoughts. I think you do need to put a demarcation in there, because the houses change owners and there goes the next person comes in and they stop mowing.
So Brandon, it sounds like the commissioner's giving you a couple options, maybe see what's best. Obviously boulders are probably a little less expensive than putting in shrubs as well. So, or a combination if you want to think about that.
Okay.
Also lasts longer.
Yeah.
So you're looking for a revised plan to that effect?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other issues or anything we need to work on, or is it something where, as we work towards the next meeting, we can maybe get a draft of the order of conditions going as well, just to try to wrap it up at the next meeting?
Yeah, the only other thing, Brad, down by the end of the driveway, there's no major concern, I don't think, but part of that goes into the wetland border across the street. Is that? Or it's up,
yeah. So there's what that is well, there's a wetland and a riverfront area that extends from Beaver Brook, which is on the other side there, but the road is in between the two, and there's also a house and the playground across the street. So
yeah, okay.
That existing drainage kind of comes down through the frontage of the lot, and then to the I think it's the west, to the left there's a catch basin. So everything, there's a low spot on that side of the road that picks up all that, any drainage that comes off the lot.
Right.
Okay. But hearing your point, Brandon, it sounds as though you've addressed what the commissioner's curiosities have been. And so I would anticipate that if you can make those modifications, you would be good for the next meeting. Do you have Board of Health approval?
So we filed, we don't have approval yet. I would hope in the next few weeks, we're going to be on with the Board of Health.
Okay.
So we filed these consecutively,
Okay.
Okay.
So our next meeting will be December 14th. Does that give you enough time?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Amy will let you know what time that will be. Thank you, Brandon.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Okay, next on the agenda is continued discussion update, 5 Scott Road enforcement order and order of conditions, Mass D file number 204-907. Somebody want to speak to that?
Matt, you there? I don't think he's here.
I don't think he's on the call.
Yeah, he had another filing for 47 someplace, and I didn't get the notification out soon enough because of the holiday. So he might have assumed that both those got pushed to December 14th.
Okay. Well, time-wise, it works out okay because it's 8:30 and that's the next one. Do you want to do that, James? The 80
Yeah,
year?
continued public hearing, notice of intent, 80-year road. Construction of a new silo, restoration of a railroad siding, and construction of a rail car storage area, and 3 new groundwater monitoring wells. Somebody want to speak to that?
Yep, Kevin Mark from David Ross here. Just a update from the last meeting, and especially after the site walk that we had out there prior to that meeting. The commission wanted to see the site stabilized. So on Wednesday and Friday last week, the property, McKinnis Middlesex Materials rather, was out there. They installed erosion controls in the form of straw wattles along the entire western side of the property. Brand new wattles.
Do you have photographs to share with us?
I don't have any photos of them.
Amy, didn't I see an email that stated that they were gonna give us an update?
Yeah, he was supposed to give an update to me on Wednesday, which he did, saying that they would be finishing on Friday, and I haven't been out there.
Okay.
Yeah, they got the wattles and things as soon as they could, as soon as they got them installed, whereas Wednesday and back on Friday. Just haven't had time to take any photos of them yet. But
so when have you been out on site?
I was out there on Wednesday, and I'd say 99% of them were installed. They just had a little bit more up towards the north side of the property to install. When I was out there, they were filling in the gaps and kind of shoring up the gaps in that diversion barrier, the Jersey barrier. They actually built a berm on the pavement side of it to make sure that that's functioning kind of as intended, directing all the water down towards that low point. We're just getting kind of the pre-treatment through that gravel apron. Down at the southern end of the parking lot, they moved all that equipment that was being stored there. I believe some of it's going off to a project in the near future. But in the meantime, they moved it all and were able to sweep and remove all of the built up sediment that was down there. And got rid of all that. And again, put new erosion control barriers down along that whole edge to hopefully at least, get things under control for the time being. Make sure nothing's, getting in nothing's worsening. And then, those were the big things. They went back through and replaced any of the silt sacks that looked like they needed replacing.
So how many were replaced?
I believe just the one, at least in the vicinity of the project.
And what is their process now for checking them?
What's that?
What's the process? What's their process now for checking them?
I think they just know that they're where they are now. So now that they know where they are and that, they need to stay on top of it, they're gonna be checking them more frequently.
Okay, so I just want to go over, and the commissioners can look at page 6 of their minutes from the last meeting, which goes through kind of the outline of what we expressed needed to be done. Kevin, I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of paraphrase some of these for you, if you don't mind. Sure. So there's 8 or 9 items. They should move the equipment and barges off the erosion controls at a minimum of 10 feet away. So they've moved all the equipment and the barges?
Yeah, they pulled it all off the edge of the curb. Before they move anything back, they're going to make sure that they leave a path between the edge of the pavement and those straw wattles, with the intent to make sure that those straw wattles and erosion controls are intact and not damaged at all in any way.
Okay, and that included the retractable arms. So the equipment was on the barriers, but the arms were reaching into the wetlands.
Right, so they've taken that, they stood the boom up for now.
Awesome. Okay.
And they're gonna find a new way to orient that so the boom's not extending over that anymore.
Okay. So number 2, they should indicate where the barges are coming from and what contaminants, including biological, they may be carrying in and washing into the wetlands. So when we were there, you could obviously see the clams and the shells and those things. Has that been addressed?
Yeah, I believe they cleaned that stuff up, and then going forward, they are going to have that equipment cleaned at the project site before they bring it back for storage.
Okay. So you'll have to have that process in writing if they're going to bring and store those in a resource area. Okay. So
So are you thinking like an updated O&M?
Right. So that should be in the O&M. So any equipment that's being stored in a resource area that's permitted now, you'll need to know where it's coming from. So another one was, we've already addressed, refresh the entire erosion control line. Look up the NIPSES permit and what reporting and sampling requirements there are. Have you done that?
So as far as reporting the sampling requirements, I guess this falls under NIPSES, but from what I understand, that's more of a construction phase permit. I believe they have there's a NIPSES. From what I could tell online, there was a NIPSES inspection in 2016, more related to air quality, I believe. But as far as NIPSES stormwater goes, I believe that's more for construction phase. But also including the long-term operation and maintenance plan, which is in place. And they're now aware of the fact that that exists and can follow that.
Okay, so this kind of circles back around, and we recognize you're not their caretaker. But so if they're now going to follow the O&M, what assurances does the commission have that they're actually following it? I just get concerned when we say only one silt sack has been cleaned, or, I mean, these things, with the amount of volume of trucks and siltation and lack of controls that we saw, these things should almost be done daily. But, you know, Kyle and Carl and you guys, I know that that's more in your realm of expertise to comment on.
Well, if I may, just before that, you know, the silt sacks and erosion controls are generally, again, construction phase siltation controls, erosion controls. A lot of times what happens is they do just get left behind and left in place because they do provide a benefit. But as far as you know, if those were gone, if those weren't there, the site stormwater features are intended to also trap that sediment before it gets, you know, down into the wetlands.
And that's agreeable, but what we saw on the day we were there is that there was erosion going off the site. So that's what led us to believe that the measures that were in place were not efficient. So let me just carry on with the list. So that was number 4. Number 5, inspect and repair stormwater features as needed. Number 6, make sure sweeping is not just pushing material towards the resource areas. 7, monitor the silt sacks daily. Number 8, report on dust. When we were there, we could see the dust that was swirling around as well. Another was to have the pH of the basins checked as we requested. Was that done?
Oh, it's in progress. I believe we're working on that to get that tested and sampled.
So when will that be done?
I can't say for certain. I think they got in touch with somebody. I can check on what the status, you know, whoever they hired to do that is.
Okay, so it sounds like we need to set up another, if you're saying all the erosion controls are in, if Amy and at least one other commissioner can go on site in the coming days, it would be super if we can do that in the next day or two, especially after the amount of rain that you all have had. Can anyone, I'm out of state at the moment, can anybody help with that?
I'm free tomorrow after like 4. I know it's almost dark at that point, but
we could probably just
I can try and get out there too, Sarah.
Yeah, I think especially if you saw kind of like what we saw before when we did that walkthrough, I think it would be helpful to kind of look and make sure the erosion controls are done. Amy, are you around at all tomorrow?
You're muted, Amy.
Amy, are you around at all tomorrow?
Thank you. I can't do it tomorrow afternoon. I could do it. Oh, I know. I just got to go to the cemetery tomorrow morning. I can't do it Wednesday, or I could do it Thursday. I got a tank pull over at 119 Tadawon. I have no idea how long that's going to take. But
If there are two commissioners that could go together tomorrow, and then Kevin in the morning could just let them know. We do have to, because it's an active site, you have to have your construction gear on. So are there two people that can go tomorrow or the next day?
I could go on Wednesday. I can't go tomorrow.
Wednesday would be better for me too.
Okay, do you guys want to come up with a time?
Andrew, are you around on Wednesday?
Wednesday, I'll be at like 4:30, so it'll
Yeah.
be dark, unfortunately.
I can do it. At what time? Was that Brian that could make it?
Yep, that was me.
What time, Brian?
Wednesday, you want to try like 4 o'clock or quarter of?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
It's not. It shouldn't take very long. It should just be walking out in the site and.
Right.
Yep.
So Brian, if you can walk in how we did that entirety to kind of go through and then go down and see if there's any flush that's down by where the beaver activity was.
Okay.
So you may, if you can, you might want to say 3:45 just because it might be a little dark in there.
Sure.
And then if any other commissioners can go.
Contact the foreman down there.
Yep.
So that they're on, know they're coming on site. It's a
I
pretty.
assume Kevin will do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll make sure they know.
So
just
remember
do-
helmet
Wednesday 3:45 or 4, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 3:45 works if that works
Sure.
for you, Carl.
Yeah, that's fine.
Kevin, regarding the NIPD's question, so I'd be very surprised if the facility didn't fall under the EPA's multi-sector general permit. It's basically a stormwater permit that covers kind of all major manufacturing industrial facilities, and depending on the type of facility, the type of operations going on there, there are different reporting requirements and sampling requirements. So I'd say just maybe look into that one more time. Like I said, I'd be very surprised if the facility did not fall under that MSGP permit.
Yeah, like I said, I pulled up NIPD's as an online permitting history check essentially, and the only records I could find of any inspections ever taking place were mostly for their air quality. But yeah, I'll circle back on that and double check that there's not anything else in place.
Which might mean they don't have one. It doesn't mean they shouldn't have one.
Kevin, was that 2016?
Sorry?
Was that 2016?
So this kind of addresses Amy's point too. I think when the project went through permitting in 2016, I believe, that was a much bigger scale project. I would have thought that if a NIPD's permit was, triggered to be needed, it would have been triggered then. But yeah,
I think what I'm hearing is that it maybe it was, and it wasn't. It hasn't been followed through yet. So, okay.
Well, I know for new construction, the land disturbance trigger for a NIPD's permit is over an acre of disturbance. This
Right.
project
We never did a certificate of compliance, so we never went back in as well.
Right, but
So,
based on the proposed work in 2016 and now, I don't believe either project was proposing over an acre of new disturbance. So that could be one of the reasons that it didn't trigger the NIPD's threshold.
I would say that an acre has been altered since the last project. since the silos were taken down, the new was built, the washing station behind the loading station, that's all at least an acre there. But I think, so, okay. So, erosion control and reporting, and if you can, you can access the minutes online so you can see what was outlined, just for reminders for you that we kind of referenced tonight as well, Kevin.
Yep. I took a look at those, and we're still working on.
You can submit photographs tomorrow as well to Amy so she can share them with the commissioners.
Sure.
Or not tomorrow, when you guys are out on site.
Oh, sorry, was that to me or the commissioners?
Yeah, no, for you, Kevin, because you're the project manager of that, you would need to have the pictures, and if you can submit them to Amy, that would be great.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if there's people in the audience that have any comments. I don't recognize all these names.
What about 75 Harvard Road?
They just turned on.
Hi, this is David and Jenny Outman. We are an interested party to this project. It's good to hear the commission following through. I just question is ultimately the goal here for the commission to grant a certificate of compliance, or what's the permit process, and what is ultimately the 80-year road seeking?
Kevin, as applicant, would you like to address that?
Yeah, so we filed a notice of intent with Mass DEP and the Conservation Commission. We're seeking an order of conditions for the project. So that would be what we're after. And I believe at the last meeting it was mentioned that certificate of compliance was never issued for the 2016 project on the property. And so I believe we're going to be also seeking a certificate of compliance for that work as well.
Do you want to just explain that? I think what the neighbors are seeking of what is in your new filing? Like what is the proposed new filing?
The proposed new filing is to construct the 2 new cement transfer silos with truck scale and shipping container.
Yeah, we saw that. Thank you. And just the location of the truck scale, is that in the north end or the south end of the property? Or some
kind of in the middle on the western side of the property, central west side.
Okay, in the parking, the paved area that's to the south of the main building?
Yeah, southwest.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is helpful. I mean, one other thing that we noted as we were looking at this is, we're aware that FEMA redrew the flood zone map, and that the whole kind of the southern end of that property now falls within a high risk zone. I'm sure I don't know if the commission is aware, the planning board's aware, but hopefully the new data that's coming out is being taken into consideration.
That's a great point. We appreciate your validation for that. It's always helpful for the applicant to hear that. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
Amy?
Okay. So this will be,
I do remember from years ago, there was a noise situation down there with the loading and unloading of the cement cars or trucks. That was a real major thing at one point.
Yes, I think it was the cleaning of the rail cars was causing noise and dust and odor. Thankfully, the Board of Health stepped in, and they were really very helpful.
We did note when we were out on site some of the air quality with some of the dust, so we have asked for that to be reviewed and discussed going forward as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was well over the noise, in violation of the noise ordinance. It was really, really loud. But I don't know if it was the Board of Health or what, but we haven't heard that same activity in the last year or two.
Good. Excellent. Okay. So Kevin, this will be continued to December 14th. We do ask that if the commissioners, when they're out on site with you, if they have any immediate suggestions, that you take the liberty and go forward and work on those.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
So on Wednesday, just to be clear, it was Carl and Brian.
Yep.
Okay.
So they'll want to see the silt sacks. They'll want to see, there should be some record keeping going on now. And then also to start to address the questions that were outlined in the minutes for you that we discussed as well. And then we'll see you again and take photographs, and then we'll see you again in 2 weeks on Monday.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Move on,
Thank you.
unless there's any more questions.
Well,
Okay. If we're at the 8:45 Conservation Commission goals and priorities and budget, where do we sit on that?
we're done with the budget?
I just snuck that back in there because I wasn't sure if it was clear whether or not you approved of continuing to ask for an administrative assistant. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was keeping it on the table.
Yep, for sure.
So I wanted to put that on there.
Yep. Okay. So, and then James, the 9 o'clock has postponed. They're out. So Keolis is out.
That's a good thing. Tonight?
So I think we just have to all be ready for 2 weeks.
So when do you want to start in 2 weeks?
7 o'clock.
I'd be in favor of 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
7 sounds good.
I think what I'd probably do is I'd probably put the 93 Mattawanaki on there, because that was a smaller crowd of people looking at that anyway. Start off with that one.
As long as you feel we can work it in.
And I think as commissioners, if everybody can just try and really help facilitate the question and the process, so we can be a little bit more cognizant of the time, that's helpful as well. Okay.
Don't wait to the last minute to ask your question, please.
Right. Feel free to interrupt.
Yeah. I want to point out to you folks, as far as the, was it 80 site? I own the property directly across over the other side of the railroad tracks, so I am stepping back from this one because I've already gotten 2 abutter notices on it.
Okay. That's fine. Just reiterate that at one of the next meetings.
But I just thought I'd let you folks know that.
Okay.
Right, state that at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So can I make a motion?
Can I have a quick question? Can I have a quick question first? Sorry. Amy, this just might be me forgetting, but did we, for the water department work at Mill Road and King Street, or I guess it's Warren Street and King Street, did we ever, I know they came in front of us and discussed what they wanted to do. Did we ever actually sign off on anything for that?
Is that the demolition of the
Yeah.
Yeah, because they just had that minor mod of putting in pavers. In case
Okay.
it needed
All
to
right.
build
So, for whatever reason, I couldn't remember actually signing off on any of it, but we did. Okay. Well, I mean, it's gone now. It doesn't really matter. But
See, it's done now.
yeah, right. It's done. But
Oh, and there was the other issue that Julie had brought up at the last meeting on the gravel pit site on the road. She was concerned about material.
Yeah, tracking.
Yeah, so I think if people can go ahead and when they're driving around, if you have a concern, take a photograph and submit it to Amy.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it needs to be addressed quickly, call Amy, James, or myself. But yeah, so anytime, just go ahead, send the picture to Amy and we can put it as a posted discussion item.
That's fine. And the only other point I have was, Amy, just briefly, why was the assistant tabled last time?
It got approved by the select board to go to town meeting, and then COVID blew up and nobody had any money, basically.
Okay, so
everyone went to town meeting.
so we should definitely start that up again.
Yep.
As far as I know, most departments are level funded for the
Yes.
upcoming fiscal year, so it's probably not going to happen this time around, but maybe FY 23, whatever that is.
Well, I see no harm in asking. So,
Yeah.
So it's on the books.
yep.
Yeah, that works.
If you don't ask, you don't get turned down.
This is true.
And I know if you all heard or care, Anthony Ansaldi is back as town administrator. He came back today. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so they're fully staffed again. So I was given about 24 hours before I start, bugging him.
But
Happy
they still-
Thanksgiving.
Is this-
Yeah, a really long list of things.
Welcome
Is
back. Good
there,
to see you.
You're still not being allowed up into the building, are you? Really? I mean, this just the staff basically now?
The public's allowed it's pretty much appointment only, call ahead type thing. They just don't like people wandering around. Getting used to it, so it's gonna be a problem when they open it up again. Especially the building department, because they're really busy.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we
moved.
make a motion to adjourn at 8:57.
So moved.
Carl Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward,
Aye.
James Pickard,
James Pickett, aye.
Brian Crowley,
Ryan Crowley, aye.
Andrew Samako,
Aye.
and Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Okay, unanimous.
Everybody stay dry. See ya.
Stay healthy.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Hey, guys, good night.
Bye.